Welcome, everyone. A very good morning to each one of you. Thank you for joining today's virtual conference. My name is Nehal Khosla, and I'm your host for today. Dun& Bradstreet India, in association with Google Cloud and Pluto7, are glad to present this virtual conference on the pertinent topic of reduce COVID-19 impact on your supply chain for uninterrupted manufacturing. The entire series will host the thoughts of renowned thought leaders of the industry on the importance of digital future in the current scenario, which are in line with the recently announced government policies. Before we begin, I request everyone to please take a moment and go through the guidelines that have been displayed on your screens right now. We encourage you to ask more questions in the session, and we request you to please do type in your queries in the questions section. These will be taken up in the Q&A session after the panel discussion. You can use the chat session section for sharing your views. As you can see below your screen, there'll be certain elements which will display the Q&A box, as you can see on this screen, and there's a chat box. A couple of tips here. We would like to know you more. Hence, please do mention your name and your company name when you post a question. You can also mention the person's name to whom you're directing the question to. When you click on the Q&A section, there's a box like on your left-hand side of the screen. And when you click on the chat box, there is a box that will appear like on the right-hand side of your screen. These two boxes will help you converse better with the speakers and the moderator. So please do make use of it. Well, this session is not only about discussions. You have a chance to win exciting Zozo Day e-vouchers by participating in an engaging quiz that we have lined up for you. As you can see the screen, you will need to earn minimum of 50 cloud miles to be eligible to earn these vouchers. Not only that, top 18 scorers will be getting the Zozo vouchers. For this, you have to do the following activities. 1. Quiz to get you certain cloud miles. Second, asking relevant questions to get you 15 cloud miles. And of course, sharing your views and comments on the topic that is being discussed will get you another 15 cloud miles. It is mandatory to answer all the poll questions that we will be running during this session, and please do not miss the poll. In case if you happen to miss the poll, we'll be sharing the poll questions at the end of the session via an email to you. Please look out for that. Now let's take a quick look at the flow of today's session. Please refer to the agenda that is being displayed on your screens right now. We have some eminent speakers like Mr. Preetam Sahu, Mr. Manju Dev Das, Mr. Vivek Sharma, who's going to be moderating the session, Mr. Sanjeev Agarwal, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, Mr. Anil Singh, and Mr. Ashish Sawant. A promising agenda, isn't it? With eminent lineup of speakers. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank everyone for being a part of this virtual session today. So let's kickstart with the opening speaker of the day. I would now like to invite Mr. Preetam Sahu, Partner Engineer, Google Cloud, to share his views and set the context for today's discussion. Please welcome Mr. Preetam Sahu.
Thanks, Neil.
Most welcome.
So you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks everyone for tuning into the virtual conclave. So as a part of the supply chain theme, I would like to highlight a few key things. Like the data analytics, AI ML forms the core foundation piece in the world of supply chain. And that will empower your business and make ready for the success. So let's get started with the journey of Google. So before getting into that, we all know, right, there has been a data explosion or data boom, or there has been exponential growth of data, right? Where every year, once in 2 years, the data gets doubled, right? And this has resulted in turn disrupting the traditional platforms. As a result, there are around 60 to 80%. There is a high upfront cost, operational cost, maintenance cost as well, and there is a high risk of failure as high as 60%. It is not Google as a company is saying it. it is the industry experts, Gartners have highlighted it. So what makes Google Cloud different? So one of the core thing that brings a unique differentiator to Google Cloud is the best-in-class security piece, because we at Google own the privately managed network. Once the data enters the Google Cloud, it stays in the network with least exposure to the public internet. So that as a result, it makes it more secure. And the second and the important piece of this is data by default in Google Cloud is encrypted. Whether you manage your keys or you're using by default Google managed encryption keys, the choice is yours. And we at Google follow a defense in depth layered approach where we take care at every piece of information to harden not only the infrastructure, the operational aspect, as well as the human aspect. And on top of this, we understand the cloud security is a shared responsibility model. So we help the customers with a lot of features they can incorporate into their applications being hosted on Google Cloud. And we understand the industry is heading toward hybrid multi-cloud, and for that's the reason most of our managed services or the services we offer are based on the open source standards. And to address the challenge or issue of hybrid multi-cloud, we introduced in 2018 the Anthos. So if you have not heard about Anthos, so Anthos is basically a 100% software solution which will help you to run and make your workloads portable if you are using containerized workloads, and you can run that on-prem or any cloud of your choice or even GCP. And to benefit to the end users and to be more productive so they can add value to their business, we started the journey of no ops or the serverless. So most of the key offerings, the one which I will be covering today, like BigQuery, is based on the serverless platform, so that you don't focus on the mundane activities and all the infrastructure heavy lifting is taken care by Google. And one thing to highlight here, we want to democratize AI/ML. So if you look at most of the products, if you are using today like Gmail or Google Maps or even any of the product of it from the Google, right? So it gives you by default AI/ML. We believe like it should not be restricted to certain class of developers, a certain user segment, typically data scientists or data stewards. Very well, we have offering for them, but with Google Cloud, we can address to all the section of users where they can be new to the AI/ML world, or they are in the middle of the journey, or they are advanced users as data scientists. So the best of the Google, we want to bring the best of the offerings to you. So whatever you are offering, it has been battle tested in Google. That means we are the first customers of the service itself. So that it can give you trust and confidence, so that and you can bring the culture of innovation to your organization. So in 2018, there was a research by independent firm where they called out there were typically 10 popular applications and used by 9 billion users. Out of that, 8 were owned by Google. And if you look at on the slide, a lot of this, the product or services we are using in day and day out of our life, right? It has become part and parcel of life. And each of this product takes care of AI/ML by default. You don't have to do something to use AI/ML. So if you look at the search engine, Google Search has become a de facto standard, or even Gmail, the de facto standard for mailing services, or even the newest one to this service is Google Photos, which is again comes with AI/ML embedded. So where we are in the journey of the data platform. So we have been contributing very innovatively to the open source community. It's almost 2 decades. Google is nothing new to this world of data platform, right? So if you have heard of this Google file system, we started communicating back to the open source community, and even a lot of the service like the worlds of TensorFlow, the AI/ML model, we have given back to the community as well as offering as a service or platform. And of course, the BigQuery we'll covering as the part of the session, which is a serverless offering. Again, that is again open source as a Dremel project. There are a lot of white papers, a lot of code in the open source community. You can get started on the journey. So the nutshell, we are at the forefront of data analytics, AI/ML piece, and is nothing new to us. So how we are helping our customers, right? So this is one key customers I like to highlight here, the Airbus. So we had a pretty amount of good success with Airbus, their intelligence business unit, which is a part of Airbus Defense and Space, where they wanted to redesign and scale their petabyte scalable satellite images. And they were catering to 1,200 customers in 100 countries, and that's the scale they were looking at. With Google Cloud infrastructure, they could make those satellite images accessible to their customers in just few seconds rather than hours. And the customer ranged from government organizations, oil and gas majors, and even including the agriculture organization as a result. And they innovated further with AI/ML and Kubernetes to improve the accuracy of the satellite images and reduce the error rate from 11 to 3%. So in India, we also have a tremendous amount of success, and one such name to call out is Tata Steel, is a giant, no new name in the world of manufacturing space. So they started our journey with something called Cloud Search, where they wanted to break down the silos because they had 28 plus disparate sources and they want to make it quickly accessible to their employees and even the external stakeholders who are using their services, right? So as a result, they could do faster indexing so that reduced the search time to just few seconds with a cloud search. And later on, they went on to use our BigQuery platform as a data warehouse service, and they built a complete AI/ML platform. As a result, they extended the and embarked on the journey of data to even to the last mile in the organization. As a result, now they can better predict, rather better forecast their market demand as well as help in the journey of predictive maintenance for their equipments. So we need to understand like there has been a disruption on the traditional data warehousing, right? Because if you look at enterprise data warehouse use cases, that goes beyond the operational reporting, right? And the business needs the 360 holistic view of the data to make a real-time decision, right? So for that, we need to break down the silos. That's the one aspect of it. And to have the be responsive to real-time business event, your data warehouse should represent the present state of the business, not the traditional data, right? And to do that, you to reduce the time to insights, you need to quickly set up the services. It should not be days or months, like setting up the infrastructure, installing the software, patching, upgrade. All of this take lots of time, right? And so to do that, you need a faster service which can be massively scalable, and of course, not to forget the security piece and governance aspect of it, right? So because you might be ending up sharing the data with your internal as well as external stakeholders. So what's our approach to the world of data analytics, right? So what we thought, why not our end users focus more on the analytics side and add value to the business rather than for doing the mundane activities of infrastructure, right? Let the heavy lifting of this activity go to Google Cloud. We can take care of that, and you focus on data insight, build good visualizations, use other tools of your choice on that. And to do that, you need a comprehensive data pipeline. So if you look at data warehouse, it has got a lot of other adjoining components, right? Like from data capture or ingestion, data processing, data storage, building your visualization on top of that, so that you can make a meaningful sense to the business, right? And on top of that, if you want to innovate and in the world of typically world of supply chain and all those things, you need a full-fledged AI/ML, easy to use workflow. We give that offering as well. And whatever we are offering as a part of enterprise data warehouse from Google Cloud, so those are already proven. This is nothing new because we have been in the space for almost 2 decades, and this has been used by organizations by running mission critical applications on Google Cloud. So if you look at, we have been talking about the traditional data warehouse, right? On the left hand side, if you look at, a lot of the productive time of the users goes on either resource provisioning, maintaining the availability place, or doing performance tuning, monitoring. This kills a lot of productive activity hours of their time, right? But with our approach, you can focus more on the productive hours on the analysis and the insights. So introducing to you BigQuery. So BigQuery is our answer in this space for the enterprise class data warehouse. It's a petabyte scalable. Even customers are using with exabytes of data. There is no such limitations. And if you are using SQL query, you should be get an up started in just few minutes because it's compliant with ANSI standard 2011. And as we said, every data in Google is encrypted by default. So does BigQuery stores the data at rest encrypted format. And we take care of the durability and availability piece behind the scenes for you so that you can focus more on the insights. And if you have some data in other cloud storages or on-premise, you want to transfer it easily with BigQuery, you give you free offering on top of BigQuery. There is BigQuery transfer service. And of course, the flexible pricing model. Like you can get started with the journey of BigQuery very on the on-demand model, which is basically the pay-per-go model, which you are using any of the cloud offering model. And over a period of a time, you realize like this is the amount of computational power unit you need for your enterprise data warehouse. You can also buy those computational units so that you get a better discounting. So in the world of serverless approach, what unique makes to the BigQuery world is the infrastructure, the compute and the storage can scale independently. They they are not tied to each other. Like unlike other vendors where like you might start with 4 vCPUs or 6 vCPUs with like 10 terabyte of data, but over a period of a time you realize your data has increased, but you're okay with the same computational power. So, but like other vendors, they have to grow at a similar predefined steps. But with BigQuery, there is no such problem. And we spoke of real-time analytics, right? That's near real-time analytics. That's the key to the crux of the success of the any business, right? So with BigQuery, you can stream the data directly to the BigQuery or use some other tools in the data pipeline mode where you can again stream the data. And if you are comfortable writing SQL queries, we empower the SQL developers to write AI ML models. So, like let's say, for example, you want to build a faster AI ML model for, let's say, for example, for prediction, we give you linear regression or even logistic regression for classification. Even if you want to import TensorFlow models with BigQuery, you can do that. And of course, the K-means clustering, which is very popular for data segmentation, right? We all support that out of the box on top of BigQuery. And to give you a faster response and a high throughput so that can handle higher concurrency, BigQuery has in-memory VI engine which helps you with that. And and this BigQuery is quite flexible enough to work with any of the third-party tools of your choice. If you want to use any of the tools of the choice apart from Google Cloud Service, you can easily integrate with BigQuery. So this is how a modern data warehouse complete end-to-end data pipeline looks at. You will have at some stage of capture, right, or the ingestion stage, as you name it. We offer you Cloud PubSub, which is again a messaging platform based on open source technology, Apache Kafka. In the processing stage, we give you Cloud Data Flow, which is again a managed service based on Apache Beam for data processing online or batch data, or even for the matter of the fact, if you're looking at Hadoop or Spark style of workloads in a managed service, we give you Cloud Data Proc as well. And once your data has been processed, what you can do is either you can store in cloud storage or directly in BigQuery. Both have the flexibility of storage option. Once the data is there, either in the cloud storage BigQuery, you can extend with the data visualization tools. And one thing to highlight, Data Studio is offered as a free data visualization tool with any of the Google Cloud service, or you can bring your own tools like Click, MicroStrategy, or Tableau of your choice, even Looker, which Google acquired a month back, right? And top of that, you can build your AI ML model using TensorFlow model or even using BigQuery SQL. So the platform is quite flexible. And if you look at most of the technologies we are supporting in this data pipeline for this process is based on the open source. So we spoke of democratizing AI ML, right, for the citizen users or even for the new users who are new to the world of AI ML, right? On the left hand side, this is the pre-packaged AI ML model from Google, where we give you a Vision API, Dialogflow. You can get started with your minimal lines of code. On the right hand side, for the data scientists or data stewards, we still support them with their own tools of choice if they want to bring in Python or write with use TensorFlows or Keras or any of the modern AML technology, they can use it. In the middle, if you are like have limited AI ML knowledge, like machine learning knowledge, but you still want to explore in this journey, we have AutoML, which can help you build custom high-class trained models and give you faster accuracy and prediction. Because it's built on the Google's 10 decade years of experience on this journey of AI ML. So we have plenty of offerings in this space to highlight you how a citizen class developer can get started. So what you can do is you can try this Vision API right in the console without writing a single line of code. You just can upload an image or pic. It will help you extract the meaningful insights or data from this, and it gives you a highlight what part it is, and it gives you saying that it's a part of a motorcycle or part of any of the brand. You can see that, and sometimes it is also important to understand if there are some offensive images in this space, right? So with this, I would like to hand it over back to DNV team.
Thank you, Mr. Sahu. What an informative session that was. I'm sure all the participating audience had some key takeaways from your session today. We would now be moving on to the quiz. So let's gear up, everybody. A few instructions that I would like to help you with. We would be running the quiz on menti.com, and the link with the login code has been shared in the chat window on your screens. I would request everybody to quickly log into menti.com in a new browser and use the code that is going to be displayed in your chat section and on the screen shortly. Or else you can directly log on to the link mentioned in the chat box. Kindly stay onto the browser once you've signed in. Also, please do sign in with the same email ID that you have used to register for the webinar today. I request you all to please open the chat box and click on the link of menti.com. You just have to grab your phone, go on to menti.com and enter the code that is displayed on your screens. That is 434587. I'm looking for some overwhelming responses. Let's see how many are joining in. All you have to do is, let me remind you, log on to menti.com, that is menti.com, or click onto the link that is displayed in your chat box, enter the code, and use the same email ID that you have used to register for this webinar. I hope you all are joining in. Okay, 24. I hope everybody is geared up for the quiz. I repeat, please log on to menti.com or click on the link that is being displayed on your chat box. Use the code that is displayed on your screens right now. All you have to do is grab your phone, go to a new browser, type in menti.com and put in the code that is displayed on your screens. That is 434587. Or you can click on the link on your chat box. That's some number. I'm looking forward to a few more people. I see there is a hand raised. So all you have to do is log on to menti.com or click on the link that is displayed in your chat box. And put in the code 434587. Come on, next 5 seconds and then we'll start the quiz. I want more and more people to join in. Okay, one last time, you have to grab your phone, go on to a new browser, type in menti.com or click on the link that's given on your chat box and put in the code 434587. Use the same email ID that you have used to register for this webinar. I think we should start now. I hope a lot of you have joined in. Let's start the quiz now. Okay, I see a couple of more people joining in. Okay, let's start. You'll be given 25 seconds. First one, live migration to a cloud involves. Okay, answer fast to get in maximum cloud miles, maximum score for that matter. Live migration to a cloud involves. There are 4 options. Answer fast to get in maximum points. Okay, let's see. The right answer is downtime of few milliseconds. Okay, now on to the next question. Answer fast to get more points. A web-based email service such as Outlook, Hotmail, or Yahoo Mail are examples of which of the services? Answer fast, 25 seconds. Let's see what is the right answer in the next few seconds. There you go. Software as a service. Okay, I hope a lot of you got that right. Next one on your screens. In which service the tasks associated with infrastructure provisioning and management are invisible to the developer? 4 options on your screen. Answer fast. Two, one. Okay. That's serviceless computing. Okay. The next question, the key is to answer rightly and fast. Cloud computing shifts capital expenditure to dash expenditure. That's the next question. 4 options on your screen. Okay, let's see. And 3, 2, 1. And the right answer is operating expenditure. That's a good one. The last question for the quiz. Dash is a vital technique to create cloud computing centers. 4 options, answer correctly and fast. And 3, 2, 1. Let's see the answer. Virtualization. Okay, that takes us to the scoreboard now. Let's see who's topping the leaderboard. It's Amitava. Congratulations, Mr. Amitava. I hope you earn much more cloud miles. Congratulations and all the best, and stay tuned. Let me remind you, you'll have to ask all of you to earn more cloud miles, ask relevant questions, share your views and comments on the topics that are being discussed to earn more and more cloud miles. And of course, don't forget the poll during the session. We would now move on to the next speaker of the session, Mr. Manju Devdas, founder and CEO of Pluto7. Please welcome Mr. Manju. Over to you, Mr. Devdas.
Thank you. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right. My name is Manju Devdas. I'm the founder CEO of Pluto7 and based in California, originally from Bangalore. We work with Fortune 100 companies worldwide and with a lot of brands in India, specifically solving one of these 15 use cases. With COVID-19, the common themes that you would hear is a shortage of certain goods or products that you're buying, or there are excesses and so on, be it pharmaceuticals, drugs, medicines, food, oil and gas, and so on. So when we work with these various customers, they are looking for how do they do better than what they traditionally do? How do they do the demand forecasting better? How do they get better accuracy and so on? So we work with various customers of varying sizes, ranging from mid-size to large customers. Some of these customers have got on a journey about 2-3 years back, and they continue on with the journey. And the common theme when we work with these customers is innovation. Innovation, bringing the best in domain knowledge, best in the platform. You heard from Preetham on how Google Cloud, from a serverless architecture perspective, can really save your time in getting into data insights and focusing on your business rather than managing the infrastructure. Now let's take a pause and think about what we are seeing with COVID-19. It is needless for me to point the amount of disruption we all see in our personal life and family by being confined and so on. What's happening at a bigger scale worldwide, apart from the numbers that you're hearing from hospitals and so on, there's a massive disruption in the supply chain, which is seen really like once in 100 years. And given the such rare occurrence of an event like this, in most organizations that you go into, there is no scenario that is being planned to match this and be prepared for it. That doesn't mean that nobody thought this will ever happen. Most people thought that it will not happen in their career or in their company and so on. The important thing to make note here is it is not just about it starting or ending with the virus itself. The ripple effect of the shutdown of manufacturing plants to distributions to logistics has a cascading effect that could last for many months, quarters, and even over a year. I sit on advisory at University of Southern California as part of the global supply chain organization, and actively work and interact with various large enterprises globally, some of the largest enterprises, in terms of how their supply chain gets disrupted. And as part of that, the common theme that comes up over and over again, especially in today's world of complex supply chain, where you have customers, parts from customers that are the goods that you eventually sell to the customers, which comes from the distributor, manufactured in a manufacturing plant, with parts coming from many suppliers and the raw materials. They all work in an orchestrated manner. The Lean Six Sigma manufacturing and total quality management have optimized the world to run in a very efficient manner, such that there's labor optimization to shipping optimization to cost optimization, all so that you have the right part, the right product at the right, delivered to the right customer at the right time, at the right price and the right cost, generating profitability to enterprise. But when you shut all these nodes all at once, or most of them at once, the system is not designed to react. So now you run into situations of either too much inventory or less inventory, different nodes, people hoarding inventory, logistics not being able to move because people are not available, and so on. Now, in a like stock market, when you see, and we all hear that stock market a lot runs on psychology. Similarly, in supply chain world, there's a human psychology that plays a role, which if a customer starts buying more of a certain product, let's say it could be one of the grains or toilet paper or whatever that you buy, if a customer buys more, then the retailer is thinking that the demand is, so let's say customer bought 2, the retailer is thinking, let me stock a little bit more, let me buy 3. And you have 2 customers, so he's actually stocking 6. Now the wholesaler is thinking that there's a demand going up, so he tends to stock more than the retailer really is going to order, and then the manufacturing is stocking even more and supplier is stocking more. All of them thinking that I'll stock more so that I don't run short of the future growing demand. But what happens is when there is a reverse effect, which can happen in this scenario, then everybody has a cascading effect and there's a profitability impact that happens. So what's happening in the Indian economy with the supply chain that's getting affected in every sector in many ways. When you look at many reports that you see, which is being released on a regular basis, most companies, because of this optimized supply chain world that we live in, carry inventory only for 1 to 2 months or maybe 3 months in some cases. And it's affecting many sectors because there's retail, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, technology. They all have supply chains which have all those nodes. Now, 2 things that have coming up often with us as we go through this. First is we wish we could have a better visibility into our data, into our business, what is happening at our business in different cities, in different locations, or maybe even in different countries, and connecting all their different functions or departments, which in turn have their own databases. Now, when you talk about a platform like Google Cloud with serverless architecture, Google already hosts almost half the world's data. Now, hosting all of your enterprise data on this architecture to give you a near real-time response is practical and cost-effective. With that, you now think about bringing all your manufacturing, sales, services, R&D data together. Now, with the bullwhip effect, when this magnitude of a large-scale impact of this scale happens, it's not just the demand. Demand is where it starts with, but then there's a supply, then there's shipment delays, then there's oversupply, then there's people costs, or people not be available when they need raw material, or raw material is not available, and so on. So at the end of the day, businesses are looking at how do I do better? Now there are, during normal times when the forecast accuracies, what was acceptable is no longer acceptable because now their accuracies have dropped significantly. Delivery times are being missed, and they have to carry either a lot of inventory or they're out of inventory for a while, and they might end up with too much inventory after some time. So the one aspect that customers are now looking for is we need to have visibility into our full business. We need to understand how our demand, procurement, shipments, or sales orders, or even how we service our customers are visible. And not only that, in today's world, when you shut down even parts of it, the ripple effect and the profit, how fast the profit drains, not just the profit, the cash and the money starts vanishing because now you don't have customers paying or not paying fully, and then the suppliers whom you rely on can't afford and they go out of business. So there is all this cascading effect of not having visibility into your supply chain in an effective manner. We work with various large businesses who have global reach, and even at a national level have countrywide brands where they deal with hundreds and thousands of parts or millions of customers at a time. And when we work with these customers, what they look for is, we want to do better than our rule-based system. We want to improve the accuracy. And there are times where it becomes obvious that it is like laws of economics, so you can't violate the laws of mathematics. There are certain points when your data volume gets exponential, humans can comprehend and make high accurate decisions. So that's where running forecasting models with many machine learning models segmented by our customers and products, that's something that we see market adopting rapidly. And because we have solved this so many times, we have launched solutions that go on GCP Marketplace. I'll not go into the details behind it, but essentially at one click you could go ahead and get get demand forecasting, your data loaded, your machine learning model is pre-built, and with a visual. And just to give a glimpse of the visual, and you might wonder, I already do my forecast in SAP, Oracle, or any of these systems. Why do I need one more tool? The chances are very high that most of the softwares that most companies own are rule-based systems. And but here the difference is you have machine learning models that are self-correcting to a level that at some point, like humans in many scenarios can give up because of the accuracy level being high, that once you get that right, you reduce your excess and shortage problem. So that's, with that, when we go into customers today, if you look at with many people sitting at home, not too many cars are on the road, nor are people thinking about buying many cars. So when you think about ripple effects like this, when the demand drops, it's not just at the enterprise of this automobile, and we deal with a couple of automobile companies in Japan as well, who have subsidiaries in India and many other countries. When the demand drops, there is a cascading effect to the engineering, to contract manufacturing, to distributors, to suppliers, and so on. You need to have the full visibility across your supply chain so that you know that where the bottlenecks are and what needs to be done. So just to give you a few examples, with one of the semiconductor companies that we're working with, their normal accepted accuracy level was at 70%. When we build the machine learning models for 8 out of the 10 product lines, we hit 90% accuracy. The real difference is we just run a lot of math against looking for data patterns. And while they were running at a 1 to 2 year demand forecast history, we were running against 10-year history. With one of the largest motorcycle manufacturers in India, we do part detection. Now, when you have labor, it's not just reducing labor or labor. It's really you're trying to improve the accuracy level of parts where they have 25,000 different parts that come into their parts center, and there's a 40% inaccuracy in identifying what the part is. And with that causes a lot of cascading effect in the downstream system in your supply chain when you end up with the wrong part. So reducing this reverse logistic cost by 75% by using machine learning to identify the parts and classify the parts was part of the project. And then moving on, beer manufacturing, AB InBev, one of the world's largest beer manufacturing company, we improved the beer filtration process by replacing filters at the right time using machine learning model. One machine learning model saving about $10 million, and that when you multiply it by the number of plants worldwide, they have 100 plants and so on. So you have a multiplicative effect of savings. And this won the world's best innovation award by Gartner. And we as a Pluto7 are recognized as Partner of the Year for 2019 for data and analytics by Google Cloud for having done being best for the analytics and data science work that we do with enterprises around the world. California Design Time, they are one of the largest sellers of household goods in India and US. They run their analytics on Google Cloud and using machine learning and AI, some of the components that you had Preetham talk about. And the difference is we reduce the inventory carrying cost by 50%. These numbers are dramatic. They are dramatic for a reason, because when you run a rule-based system, it is a human who is defining a rule, and the rule inherently has bias. And so that's where, like when you look for patterns, the patterns that when you let a patterns, which is determined with the machine learning model, help you make small decisions. You don't have to make it like really complex problems, right? So your outcomes improve. In this case, for example, grocery stores, which products can be substituted with what? And these days, grocery stores don't have full stock in different countries. So which product needs to be stocked where, which can be substituted with where? All of these things are machine learning models recommending it. So when we work with customers like this, we have hundreds of scenarios that we work with many customers, and there are a lot of them published on our website. But what's very important in this journey is for you to recognize where you are first, and then get on that journey. That is, with having worked with not only hundreds of machine learning models and scenarios ourselves, but Google internally runs thousands of machine learning models to run their own business. So they are like years ahead when you look at how a truly digital and a data-driven company is run. When we bring these learnings using this platform into these enterprises, we put them on a journey so that they understand not just getting beyond the traditional analytics and centralizing the data in the warehouse, but taking a lot of these small supply chain decisions of selecting suppliers and identifying stockout situations to preventive maintenance and demand forecasting, and taking those decisions and driving higher accuracy. That's the transformation effect that we're talking about. And when the company's revenues drop, profitability drops, when you have to bring in innovation, you have to look for opportunities like this. So we as a company, we run workshops, proof of concepts, and production pilots, and we put the customer on a transformation journey. With that, I would like to pass it on to Dun & Bradstreet team.
Thank you, Mr. Devdas. Very informative and relevant for today's businesses, which I'm sure all of us can benefit from. So it's polling time now, and your thoughts matter a lot to us. Please gear up to participate in the poll, which is displayed on the screen right now. Everyone must participate, and including all our panelists and speakers, please do cast your polls as well. As you can see, there is a pop-up box that is displayed on your screens. I request you all to please start casting in your votes. Okay, that's a good turnout. I'm looking forward to an overwhelming response, guys. Come on, start casting in your votes. I request all the panel speakers and our opening speakers to also go ahead and put in their votes. Truly happy to see such a vibrant set of audience. A few more seconds and then we can stop. But yeah, continue, people. I hope all the panel speakers and the opening speakers are also voting in. While all of you cast in your votes, I would also like to remind you about the 2-hour discovery workshop that Manju just announced. That's with the Pluto7's supply chain AI experts. I'll let you know where you have to contact once again, but I urge you to please do vote in right away. Okay, let's move on now. That was an overwhelming response. Thank you, everybody. The results are being tabulated after this, and we'll let you know about it later. So I was talking about the 2-hour discovery workshop with Pluto7 supply chain AI experts. All you must do is to reach out the Pluto7 team via an email that should be sent on contact@pluto7.com. We'll display the email ID at the end of this session. Now let's move on to the most awaited knowledge sharing and interaction session, the panel discussion. The discussion is around the topic, reduce COVID-19 impact on your supply chain for uninterrupted manufacturing. We'll be having some very interesting names displayed here, and this session will be moderated by Mr. Vivek Sharma, Senior Domain Specialist, Dun & Bradstreet, India. Our first speaker on the panel is Mr. Sanjeev Agarwal, Director, Supply Chain Management, Hafel India Private Limited. Thank you, Mr. Agarwal, for joining us.
Thank you.
Following him is Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, Associate Director, Supply Chain, Cipla Limited. Thank you, Mr. Bhatia, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Next, most welcome. Next on the panel is Mr. Anil Singh, Director, Integrated Supply Chain, Nippon Paints India Private Limited. Thank you, Mr. Singh, for joining us.
Thank you, Akshita and DNB.
We also have with us Mr. Ashish Sawant, Head Supply Chain, OmniActive Health Technologies Limited. Thank you, Mr. Sawant, for joining us.
Thank you.
Let us now begin the panel discussion. Over to you, Mr. Sharma.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, Vivek, we can hear you.
Clear.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Manju. I was listening to your presentation and it was really insightful. So thanks for that. I will just be, continuing from where you stopped. And, while you were discussing about inventory carrying cost and how do we accurately predict the inventory, I have a question related to that, but I would like to ask Mr. Gaurav Bhatia to share his thoughts on that before I come to other panelists. Sir, I'd like to know from you that, even during normal times, predicting accurate inventory is a big challenge for all the businesses. And now we are having an extraordinary time, where there are a lot of issues which will be faced by businesses on the inventory aspect. So I just want to get your thoughts on, how effective is AI in, or how effective has it proven in ensuring that there is an accurate level of inventory which businesses can maintain. So your thoughts on that, sir?
Sure. So thanks a lot, and thanks for the opportunity. First of all, thank you very much, Mr. Vivek and Dun & Bradstreet team for having us on the panel discussion. Just one discussion. So inventory is definitely both an asset and liability, I would say. Depends on also on the situation where we are in. So pharma has always I would say, inventory challenges on the higher side. And not just for pharma, but all the industry, I would say inventory is more relevant today because it blocks the decision making. Relevant is where the tools which we have heard earlier uh, gives a lot of gets a lot of importance today. So, but in today's COVID situation, I would say, or in this situation, inventory for some of the organizations is acting as a gold piece or as an asset, because we have a lot of challenges on the manufacturing side first of all, then on getting our raw materials from. So a lot of industries including pharma are dependent on other countries to get their raw materials, including China, including Italy, including France, including US. So getting raw materials is a challenge, and at a higher price at some of the places. And even transportation is a challenge, because COVID is a global pandemic, we all know. So transport and logistics is also a very big challenge. So wherever people are sitting on healthy inventory, I would say it's right now an asset for the industry or for the that organization, in terms of, because we see a very healthy demand as far as pharma industry is concerned. People majorly because of two three reasons. One, on the chronic side, people are doing a lot of panic buying because they don't know when this lockdown will end. So people are doing advancing or preponing the buying, and hence there is a surge of demand. Secondly, on the prices that I already mentioned, on the procurement prices, inventory is helping us wherever we have both for raw material, packing material, and even finished goods. And lastly, on the manpower side, which is acting as a big challenge today, and hence inventory is acting as a great asset right now.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Manju, I would like to, share the same question and get your view, your view on that, because I could see in the presentation that you have worked with different, companies in different areas which have different inventory requirements, and that depends upon the nature of business as well. So, your thoughts on how challenging it is to predict the right level of inventory or accurate level of inventory, and how does AI particularly help in that? How can businesses actually benefit from that? So your thoughts, Mr. Manju.
Yeah, thank you for the question. If you look at like some of these largest enterprises, they have been running in optimal, or to the best extent optimal situation, with bringing harmony between labor, process, policies, using analytics to the best extent possible, and continuously driving innovation in their supply chain. It's they waited for COVID-19 to optimize their supply chain. However, what COVID has really done different, with especially with the inventory carrying situation, with forecast accuracies that have driven a cascading effect down the chain, is the scenarios that the enterprises planned uh, did not include a pandemic scenario typically. And your forecast is off by 20-30%, and at the simultaneously, when you have a labor not showing up at factory by about 40%, and in overall supply chain, and some of these raw material cost goes up, now all the balancing act that you have been doing for decades, now that has gone out of control. I think you had the previous speaker talk about the from a pharmaceutical as well, right? When we look at all the way from automobile to oil and gas to groceries and so on, we are seeing different reactions in different industries. For example, oil, you can't just produce excess and store it. There is not like excess containers that you'll store and wait for the demand to take a course correct itself. Similarly, there are perishables and food. It's not like just because some higher demand today, you can produce more and store because it's perishable. And similarly, automobile, there's a whole orchestration that happens in a car being manufactured with parts coming from 7 to 10 countries typically. So when you take supply chains like this, when a harmony is disrupted in something to the magnitude that we are seeing now, to get back to normal state, it is going to take some time. During this time, inventory carrying costs are going to go up, or they're going to miss shipments. So having said that, the world is going to get to some normalized state. The difference with AI and these machine learning technologies is humans, we are awesome at linear math, understanding linear scenarios. When something ends up with an exponential scenario, we struggle. And that's why this whole, if we spoke about 3 months back about COVID-19 becoming a global scale pandemic and a scenario like this, it was very hard for us as humans to comprehend. But the people who were in those research labs and so on knew that this could happen around the world. Same thing with supply chain. When you try to plan your forecast or demand, when you have an exponentially disruptive scenario, we struggle, but ML's models don't struggle, because the ML model is just nothing but, in simple layman terms, it is just a mathematical function, a linear algebra mathematical function, if I have to take one example. And you just run that over and over. You don't have practically shortage of memory or compute, and you can run like hundreds and thousands of models for a few $1,000s, right? If you're running $100 million business, even you practically can't put enough labor to run those scenarios. When you run those scenarios, few of those scenarios are going to give you your optimal supply chain balancing outcomes. Now, this thing sounds magical to some people until they try it. If you fast forward a few years, this is the norm that's going to exist.
Okay. And one more question that naturally comes along with this is that what about real-time, forecasting? I mean, that's very important also, if not in the current context, but generally in terms of, forecasting the inventory. So some thoughts that you would like to share on that aspect also, Mr. Manju?
Sure. On the real-time forecasting, see, this concept of real-time is something that we struggle, not because it's not something that we don't understand or we don't already experience it, right? When you look at Google Maps or Gmail, it is real-time, right? There is no delays in what you see, because what you see is what somebody else is seeing, whether it's in a map or a news and something like that. But when it comes to business scenario, why is it that we struggle to do real-time forecasting and so on? Stock markets has been doing real-time forecasting for decades now. What happens is it's not so much about the cloud or the AI technology itself. They have been ready for a long time to do real-time forecasting. But organizations typically have their marketing data, the sales data, the supply chain data, their inventory, the purchasing data, and finance adjustments, or even executive adjustment that happens on forecast, disconnected from a process standpoint, from a data standpoint. When you do that, your forecast is disjointed. However, and just because for the very basic fact that the data sets are not together, if you bring the entire enterprise data, first bring the common visibility, and now when you start putting these models, they can run literally every minute, right? Your processes won't catch up to it, and that's the practicality. So in other words, to do real-time forecasting, the technology has been there yesterday. It's just that we have to fit that into a real-world process and scenarios today, because we are used to waking up in the morning and looking at the forecast once. We are not used to letting a machine do the forecast and balance supply by itself. It's like a little bit of discomfort we have in letting the car drive by itself. So it's the same effect with forecast.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Now let me come to Mr. Ashish Sawant and get his view. One of the basic questions that will come to everybody's mind, including mine, is that what are some of the features you'd like to see in your supply chain management system? I mean, that's something which is very obvious and everybody, I'm sure, would be keen to know. So your thoughts on that, sir, please.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So before coming to the straight answer of the question, one of the aspect that we have been deliberating here internally is if you look at the overall supply chain as a function, given the situation, do our processes need to be changed? Do our fundamentals or the conceptual understanding of the function need to be changed? Because this situation has challenged almost every aspect of the element of the supply chain. So, I mean, how we need to reorganize ourselves in order to tackle these kind of challenges.
Yeah.
So coming to the answer of your question, the biggest issue that we are struggling currently is the visibility. Visibility, right from the forecasting to the raw material supplies till the last mile delivery of the material to the customer. So how you are equipped with the visibility and have the better control over all the elements in the supply chain is a crucial for you to know what to expect, in the coming time, and what is the impact this particular situation is going to cause at every node and thus at the overall aggregate level. So having that visibility and some of the exercises that we have been doing right from the March third week when the lockdown got announced is the continuous scenario planning and the sensitivity analysis. So because you want to, since everything, though you have an inventory of most of the item, you may not be carrying inventory of each and every part of the item. So how you make sure that continuity is ensured, and thus understanding the impact of not availability of one part, how it will impact your overall sales and thus the business, because the leaders are anxious in terms of what's the business impact or the revenue impact that I'm going to have because of this broken elements. So understanding those aspects are important. For that, you need to have the overall mapping and the sensitivity analysis ready. And I know that most of the organizations are not ready. I mean, though we strive to achieve towards that. So this has given the opportunity for all of us to revisit that and make sure that you are equipped to answer those questions, and at the same time taking appropriate actions at every level. Now, coming to the process and the fundamentals part, one of the variable of how you de-risk yourself. I mean, the de-risking or the risk mitigation has always been part of the supply chain function, but the importance has gotten more than ever during this time, though the fundamentals remain same. So how you bring that de-risking, and one of the tool that we earlier discussed is the inventory. Of course, inventory can help you de-risk from some of the supply security kind of questions, but it comes with a cost. So how to manage that cost, because it is going to impact our profitability. So then that gives opportunity, if I am going to increase inventory of certain items, where I should cut down, or what are the other expenses than the inventory that I need to be better control in order to compensate for this increase in the cost. So not only the variable cost, but also it gives you opportunity to look at all your overhead costs and look at the things differently to make sure that the net equation doesn't get worse. And there is a overhead analysis which is getting done across many organizations that I heard from some of my colleagues in the industry, that your spaces, your office spaces, your consumables, and many all other expenses need to be revisited to make sure that this continues. So just to summarize, it's not just one part. There are the end-to-end aspects of the business are getting revisited, challenged. The push for digitization, because we interact quite often with the government agencies. So the digitization which government is doing this time is commendable job. So these are the changes which are happening in the system.
Okay, so you spoke about sensitivity analysis. That what I heard. So just wanted to know from you, in terms of deviations that you have found, if you cannot quantify that, at least reasonable, excessive, or any kind of insight that you can provide in terms of how has the experience been in your industry.
Yeah, so coming to the nutraceutical industry, we have our raw material supplies across globe. I mean, there are a good number of raw material which are sourced domestically, but there are many which are sourced internationally.
Okay.
So any lead time variation in terms of getting that material in the factory. First of all, what are the factors? When it right from giving the forecast to the suppliers, then lead time and the variation in the lead time, the logistics, the international logistics to get that. So go and visit all those factors and understand what is the risk at every level, and if there is a X amount of variation, what is the impact on your final product or the delivery. So mapping that entire thing and then assessing the impact, because if it's not going to work, then you need to have a plan B. So these, and at the same time, being less number of people available in the factory, because we fall under essential services, we have got a permission to run the factory. And since the manpower is limited in the factory, how you make sure that you maximize your assets to maximize your revenue and thus profitability. So all these kind of decision making need that mapping and the understanding the impact of one variable on the other. So that is all.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Mr. Sanjeev, I will come to you now, and we have heard a lot about AI and ML. So, and also the inventory aspect. So one obvious question that will come to our mind, and obviously to the mind of everybody who is here as an audience, is what are some of the basic requirements with respect to successful deployment of AI-based supply chain management system? Your thoughts on this question, sir? I think you are on mute mode, sir. Will you like to unmute yourself? Yeah.
Thanks, Vivek. And I think there's a basic question after listening from the Preetham and Manju and talking about will affect control tower, demand forecasting on inventory.
Right.
And fascinated about implementing AI and having immediate result and improving the ROI for the company in a nutshell.
Right.
And how we implement AI and how we do effective implementation,
right.
It's very easy, because whenever we talk to any IT company, everyone say, oh, my solution implementation will 10 weeks or 20 weeks. But we miss out a lot of things which we prerequisite to do that. How well structured your process, how you thought about company end-to-end supply chain. So I tried again on certain basics. So each organization, as we talk about demand forecast, replenishment, inventory management, logistic or return supply chain.
Yeah.
I think fundamental thing, we all need to go back in a company on a drawing board, try to integrate the whole supply chain.
Right.
I again suggest a fundamental score model which talk about plan, how well you plan your supply chain, because each company have a different supply chain, different inventory level, because the audience is different. So you try to copy any company model to your company. Try to think with your company management, what maybe my company service level 99% is good, but maybe some company 90% service level or 95% service level is good, because everything will change as a design aspect of the supply chain accordingly. Similarly, from where you sourcing all this material, from where it's coming, which have a impact in terms of product launch to meeting a regular demand, and as well as the inventory management also.
Right.
And similarly, goes on for the make portion also, and deliver also, and return also.
Right.
So the fundamental goes, in my opinion, the process, the integrated process for the organization, and a single data point entry and working across on a platform.
Right.
A lot of we all invest on implementing ERP in a company, and a lot of time we thought about, oh, we done ERP is good.
Right.
ERP typically from your factory gate to your factory gate, and the payment, like inward to outward. But there's a lot of things goes beyond that, as we talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, historical analysis or predictive analysis. So you need to collect a lot of other pieces of supply chain also, and need to integrate all of these inputs to your ERP, and need to utilize any of a first a digitalized platform to integrate the data, convert fundamental BI on the top of that, and maybe then you can go advance machine learning, or we talked about predictive analysis also into that. So it's a long journey, but the point is that we only try to see the outcome or lucrative about that, but as a whole about driving a change management, going back to design a supply chain, there's a fundamental, and of course execute that, then you can see the optimal benefit of that.
Okay, okay, fine. I think Mr. Manju, I definitely like to hear something from you also on this aspect. I mean, if somebody wants to know that what are the three things, one, two, three that I will need to do, and I'm sure answer is not that simple, but I'm still asking you, if somebody says that I want to do one, two, three things to implement an AI-based supply chain management, I mean, what will be your suggestion to that person? Before I come to Mr. Anil, I would like to get your view on this.
Sure. See, we work with Google, we work with hundreds of customers and so on. With all those experience, the first thing I try to suggest customers is don't get caught up with machine learning, the data models and the ML models, the deep neural nets and so on. That is the where, like the market tries to get carried away with the hype, right?
Right.
All you remember yourself is just more math and more data put together, right? With that power, and I think the previous person, I think Sanjeev was talking about, right? You have to really understand how it integrates with your process. If a recommendation is shown, will the person accept it? Will he give up he must have worked on the manufacturing flow for 20 years. Is he ready to give up and accept the recommendation and go make a decision on changing oil or changing the machineries and so on? So that's the first thing, right?
Okay.
Second thing is, it takes a lot of effort to bring data together. You have to rally up departments and groups and together. Even if you just show it in one place, it doesn't matter, right? You might prove that your ML model is accurate, but it has to go integrate with the rest of the process. You have many stakeholders who have to accept it. Change management is a big aspect. Third is, it is a journey. It's if you look at the pre-internet era to post-internet era, once we got used to internet and there's no going back, once we let AI start making small decisions in your supply chain, there is no going back. But to make that happen enterprise-wide, it's going to be a journey. So be ready for the journey and don't expect quick magic by just buying a cloud or putting an AI model, because that's when you get excited, right? So try to resist that excitement and rather be in for long-term sustenance would be my advice.
Okay, okay. So you are saying it's not a plug and play. Don't take it that way, right? In a way.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So look at it holistically, and and eventually, once you put it in place, once it starts working, it becomes part of your business.
Okay. Thank you for that. Now let me come to Mr. Anil Singh and get his.
Vivek.
Sorry. Yes.
Sorry. Hi, Vivek. Gaurav. If I can just add to that point also.
Please, if you can add to that, it will help.
Sure. So while we were implementing predictive analytics and machine learning in our organization, one of the most critical piece that we found was definitely first of all, the support and buy-in from the senior management. And such decisions are also more, I would say, they gain more importance or they gain more implementation execution on a fast track basis once have the buy-in from the senior management, and they are very confident of the results that we want to derive, and previous historical case studies help us in understanding what have they given as benefit in other organizations. So and when you try to do the proof of concept, at that point of time also you get to see some of the data points whether they would be able to help in terms of, say, forecasting accuracy or ensuring your supply reliability, how critical they play a role there in terms of improvement that you see. And as rightly said by Manjunath, it's a very well planned and journey. It has to be a journey rather than in a single milestone. If you expect or a single would not be that way. It's a step-by-step journey, and it's a slow and steady process which will keep yielding results as you go deeper and deeper and implement or follow it more. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mr. Anil. I will come to you, and I'd like to get your views. Ultimately everything boils down to ROI, ROC, ROE. Businesses look at the performance from a financial perspective very minutely. So I want to get your thought on what are the business domains within which supply chain have greater opportunity to impact the bottom line. So your thought on that, sir?
Vivek, for posing this question to me, and thank you, DNP, for having me as a panelist. Before I go to the question, everybody in today's world of this COVID-19 issue knows that cash is the king and everybody has to conserve cash. So it becomes furthermore important for all of us to find out ways to get the cash accumulated and save the cash as far as possible.
Yes.
So to answer this question, first of all, I'd like to take you through, take the audience through some of the major functions of the supply chain. When we talk of supply chain is a much bigger bandwidth thing which we talk about, and Manjunath explained it in a very detailed way in his presentation. So I'll just touch upon each of these functions and then elaborate on how we can contribute to the cost and which are the functions which are the important ones for the bottom line of the business. So to start off with, the very first thing in the supply chain, which I'll say as a sub function, is the planning function, which plays a major role with respect to what you have to produce, what you have to buy and all that. Then the second function comes out to be the procurement function, followed by logistics and warehousing. And then a bit of it is the international trade also, which can add on to the kitty, because again, it's not about only India, it's about the global world where you are going to export your products. Now, core function to all these functions is the manufacturing and the contract manufacturing, or in-house manufacturing, or the outsourced machine manufacturing, which we do. Now, each of these function, if you talk to a CEO or if you talk to a CFO, he'll say each function of the supply chain is a cost. And yes, he is very right that each function of the supply chain incurs a cost in some way or the other. But that is an important and a good cost which we incur for the benefit of getting the revenue or the sales revenue. To elaborate this for a consumer industry, I am talking of specifically a consumer industry because there are industries which are categorized into service, as well as there are industries who have a partial service and partial manufacturing setup. But I'll concentrate my discussion to the manufacturing based industry, where we have got a lot of products which we are making. So any consumer good industry or a FMCG sector, if we look at the planning part basically impacts the cash flow of the company by creating a FG inventory, which is produced through the plans which he gives to the manufacturing function or a contract manufacturing function. Second is the procurement function. Now, procurement function again impacts the cash flow of the company by purchasing the raw material as per the plan which has been given, which adds on to the RM inventory of the organization. Now, the third function which we talked about is the logistics and the warehouse function, which impacts the cash flow as an indirect cost, because you spend on CFA, you spend on warehousing, you spend on transportation. So that is again a spend to the company. Now, the last bit is the international trade, where again you incur a different type of logistics spend, like a CFS, clearances, trade forwarding, charges, and all that. So of all major functions of the supply chain, the key functions which impact the bottom line of the company in a major way, as per my understanding, is the procurement function, followed by the logistics function. Now, people may differ me on this part because it depends upon the type of business you are in. But when I talk about a consumer good industry, if I talk about a paint industry, if I talk about any of the industry which is incurring a lot of raw material purchase, there the procurement function plays a major role. Now, here I would categorize my industry, which I am talking about, that RM is sourced primarily from India, because if RM is imported, then obviously the international trade cost will be much more as compared to RM. So if I put a caveat on my conditions of the industry which we are talking about, this RM is primarily sourced from India. RM from some major component of the COGS, like in a paint industry or a FMCG sector, or industry normally has a in a paint industry, because I am talking about the paint industry because I come from the paint background. So in a paint industry, typically 55% of the cost of the goods is primarily from the raw material cost. Okay. And 5% to 10% is the cost which is contributed by the logistics and the warehousing. So if I got 100 crore of sale revenue, which I get from a business, then the spend which I do on the business with respect to procuring of the raw material is my 55 crores. Now a saving of which is around 55% of the entire cost. A saving of around 1% of this cost will give you straight away a benefit of 1 crore to the bottom line of the company. That is the way it goes. So for me, for a consumer good industry or an FMCG industry, where the RMC forms a major component of the sales revenue or the cost incurred, RMC becomes the major contributor to the bottom line of the company to get a major profitability for any of the company of a consumer good which is working in India.
Okay, okay. Since you spoke about revenue, profit, and cash, all three things, I was reminded of an old saying which says that revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is the real king. Where you started, I guess. So thank you for sharing.
Very right.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your views. I will hand it over to Nehal before I start Q&A. So Nehal, if you have to say anything, or can we go ahead with Q&A? That's what we can do now.
Certainly, sir, you can go ahead with the Q&A. So I see we have a lot of questions coming in, right? So I would just request all the participants, in case you've not shared your questions yet, please share your questions in the Q&A section present at the bottom of your screen, and we'll take them up. But as of now, sir, you can start with the questions at your end.
Thank you. So I will ask my first question to Mr. Manju, which has come from one of the participants in today's program. The question is, it's a very important question. It says, is it possible to predict sales of product whose demand is volatile and based on something like a crude oil price? So your thoughts on that? That's something which is being discussed and debated now a lot.
Okay, so I'm assuming this product is itself not a crude oil, but there is crude oil price next to it. Correct. Now, if crude oil price can go up and down, and there is a correlation between crude oil price, then gold, and then there is other products, and that's sold in the market. And if you look at in a short window, sometimes you might struggle to find the correlation. But if you look at a century long window of data, and if you look at whenever crude oil price goes up and down, typically during a pandemic, but during war and those crises, when crude oil goes out of balance, the price either shoots up or drops down. There is a correlation of effect that has in transportation, airline, and other industries as well. So what that in turn affects is the logistics cost that comes with it, right? So and there are certain products where the price is very sensitive, right? And the price is a function of your demand, right? If your demand goes up and the price goes up and the affordability is low, then you'll end up with more stock, right? So you have to kind of control the price and the demand to go in alignment with this. Although when you do a demand forecasting, you're not always watching a crude oil price with your product price, but there are in the broader industries where your margins are low and transportation, especially whether it's the last leg or across borders and so on, crude oil price plays a bigger role. So in typically what I've observed, like when these kind of analysis of blending internal and external data were difficult, organization will typically do their internal forecasting, and I've been doing it for like 20 years, and then somebody who has this view of the world or insights from market will come and override that forecast, right? They will not necessarily say, I'm overriding this purely because of crude oil. However, now with all the cloud and all these technologies becoming cheaper, it's easier to bring in these data and let your forecast, this become a signal into your forecast and see what the behavior you get, right? And over a period of time, your models will start learning to correct themselves. So I hope that answers.
Okay. So you are trying to say that basis the change in the data set itself, you will have some new aspects emerging. Is that right to interpret, Mr. Manju?
Correct. So there has to be some kind of when you feed the data input, right? First, apply some common sense, right? And if you absolutely see no correlation with crude oil, just feeding the will have no value to the model.
Okay,
If
thank you. That's
maybe some indication, feed it into the model and start seeing the model pick it up.
okay. That's really helpful, Mr. Manju. Now I will open question to all our panel members, which is again an interesting question, and you can answer, and share your views. So one question which has come up is, how will fund crunch create an impact on supply chain planning? I mean, obviously, there are two challenges which are coming up. One is that demand is less and sales obviously is not high. So this will have a fund crunch for the companies. So how does supply chain get impacted because of that? If any of the esteemed panel member would like to share their thoughts on this, it will be really great.
Can you repeat the question, Vivek, please?
So the question is that there is a fund crunch with companies as of now. They are not having a sufficient fund with them. That's a liquidity issue basically. And additionally, all of us are seeing that demand has fallen and revenue is also not coming that way. So this kind of a fund crunch or liquidity issue for the companies, how will this impact the supply chain is the question.
So,
Sanjeev, this side, actually, this is a whole business point or the business cycle issue. Supply chain, yes, is a part of a company because most of the cash routed supply chain in terms of buying a raw material or the service for a company. So as I think everyone mentioned about in today's time when we're talking about cash as a king, so that's a whole business issue and there is no short recipe to answer A, B, C for such a question. I think all the key stakeholders of a company need to go back on a drawing board, need to think about uh, again, industry to industry is a different situation. Like pharma, as we listening and hearing, is a no demand issue. But if you go on side, there is a demand issue. So I think based on the company, based on your business model, based on your historical expenditure pattern, I think need to identify the certain opportunities where you need to focus. Till that time, you start generating more cash.
Okay, Mr.
I
Gaurav,
would just like to I would just like to add on to Sanjeev that supply chain very much gets impacted by the revenue being not generated because of the cash stuck in the market and all that. But to manage the show, we definitely will have to go to the drawing board and work it out. But my suggestion is that we should be very much vigilant of the fact that we make now we cannot stop everything, but we make the product which is made to order, where we can immediately get the payment, because our supply chain, one of the major cost is the cost which gets stuck in the inventory. So only those inventory which can be immediately moved out to the market and sold off, and plus where the collection is possible, is something which we can immediately take a task for.
Okay, Mr. Gaurav, I think you want to say something on this, is it?
Yes. So I was just trying to add. One is, as rightly mentioned by all, we would need to sit on more liquidity, on more cash. The first option is to try and postpone your capex decisions or large opex decision as much as possible. That is the first point. Second, and spend more on your cash generating products or faster liquidating products, which we all in all industry we classify as runners and repeaters, which are your class A products. So focus there rather than on your stranger and class C products. So that should be the first I would say thumb rule, where as an industry we should be focusing on our runners, so that we do not rightly or unfortunately get stuck with the non-saleable or non-moving inventory. So that should be our key focus, which is there in control.
Okay. Mr. Manju, I've got a question for you, which is again related to the machine learning. And the question is that machine learning based forecasting might work when there are marginal changes in demand. Does it work when there are shocks like what we are seeing now. So it's like connected to the previous question, but still it will be great if you can give us some insight.
Yeah, the shock that we are seeing right now, if you take a typical large enterprise, let's say in retail, right, their margin of a product is about net margin is about 5 to 10% max, right, after everything.
Right.
Now, if you take something like that, the forecast accuracy of 5 to 8% is considered terrible. Now, when they run into like a 30 to 40% inaccuracy, uh, the fundamentals get shaken, right? Now, when it comes to uh, these inaccuracies management, like shocks like these,
Right.
you have to look at the situation the way it is right now, and look at the next 18 months horizon, for example. There is almost, it's not a very direct correlation, but there's a fairly close correlation between how this COVID-19 virus itself will behave, the curve, the spread of the virus, and the deaths and the lockdowns that are happening. These are not independent, unrelated data. They're all related data, right? If the number of the people getting infected with virus goes up, the deaths goes up. When that is going up, lockdowns will happen. That has a cascading effect on how many people will go buy and purchase the product. It's almost the level of city, state, and zip code or pin code level, right? So you can start looking at it from that angle, rather than worrying about the shock and like, oh, my rule-based system or my machine learning model that I'm going to put is not catching this. Think about, now that you have this data, how can you model these scenarios? Like if you look at the CNN, BBC, NDTV, and so on, they're talking about this reoccurring 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line. What if the medication is not available to the mass public 18 months up to 12 months, right? What happens to your demand? What happens to your stores? If you really start planning those scenarios and forecasting and have like 2 or 3 variations, or in some case in McKinsey report, they say model 9 scenarios. Have 9 scenarios of forecast. It's not the end of the world, right? I mean, you plan the scenarios, and for each scenarios, the other speakers spoke about how do you carry your inventory? How much cash do you have? Is it practical? Is it not practical? What's your labor cost? So you run this with an orchestrated manner. Then out of that, it's not like all the 9 scenarios are even distribution. There are 2 or 3 you'll narrow down and say this is most likely what's going to happen. So it's really running these scenarios is what will give you a control. Don't worry too much about the shock itself, because there's too many negative noise around or news around, which clouds our mind, and we have to let data talk to and help us run better objective forecasts, rather than us trying to bring news that we see on TV into our forecasting model.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, last question that I will take, and I will put it to our esteemed panel speakers again. The question which has come is that given the current scenario and how things are evolving as of now, how challenging or effective the forecasting techniques are going to be in the days to come. So, any view on that?
So if I can quickly add here, so tools like forecasting tools or machine learning tools will take the data, because show a dip as compared to what you had forecasted in a normal scenario. So those machine learning tools will take that data, and as per the more recency effect, they populate the data that way. So they learn, and machine learning feeds on the forecasted and the actuals, and they keep correcting that. That is their algorithm of self correction. But to get a result or expect a result straight away from a tool immediately for the next month or for the next to next month would not be so easy, because even the machine doesn't know, or we doesn't know what the COVID situation is. So I would rather advise to be more in contact with your business managers, the sales people, the BD managers, who are day in day out on ground, and having that, they are the actual pulse of the market, and they know what is going to be the scenario. Now some industries are saying there will be a surge in demand, as one of the question was there. So because you're for say like pharma, FMCG, groceries, those are finishing, I would say, the channel inventory or the retail inventory, which is there because supply is not happening, because supply is disrupted. So there you would see a surge of demand. Whereas for say certain industries, maybe definitely for automobile, definitely for aviation industry, travel, tourism, there will be a dip in terms of demand for sure, because people will like to conserve their cash and postpone their high value decisions. So
Correct.
those two things I think will be critical, and to understand the demand more than the tool, I think the pulse of the ground from your sales team, from your business team would give you more insights here.
Okay. Thank you for that. Uh, with this, I will hand it over to you, Nehal, and to take things further.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. First, let me also thank you for summarizing the entire panel discussion and duly helping in answering the relevant questions raised by our attendees. Truly valuable takeaways from this session. We shall share the Zozo vouchers with the gamification winners directly with them after this session. That's just an update to all of you. With this, we bring today's virtual conference to an end. Well, today's session wouldn't have been a success without the active participation of all our esteemed speakers, panelists, and delegates. I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking out time and being a part of this virtual conference today. And a special thanks to Google Cloud and Pluto7 for the support to this in this initiative. Without them, this conference wouldn't have been possible. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Take care and stay safe.